10 Crystal Palace players, 10 of them. And trust me, there would have been a lot more that I would have written down, but I somehow managed just to squeeze it down to 10 of the worst players to ever play for Crystal Palace since being promoted back in 2013. It's in no particular order, and yeah, some of these players are absolutely terrible. Some started well and some ended crap. And starting with number 1, Patrick Van Arno, or some people would like to call him Patrick Van Arno because he played like one and he defended like one. Now going forward, he wasn't actually that bad. He actually was pretty good, scored some brilliant goals. I can remember the goal he scored at Bournemouth away. We lost that 2-1. I can also remember that free kick he scored against Newcastle back in February 2020. That was also a good goal. But defensively, he was absolutely atrocious. Defensively, he was a left back and that was his position. But this guy looked like he was playing like a centre forward half the bloody time. It was just beyond laughable, but it was an embarrassment. He was atrocious, getting caught out, mucking around with the ball. I remember we played Bristol in the League Cup once back in 2017, and we lost it by 4-1. And one of the goals was down his side. He tried to head the ball. He made a right pig of it, flapping around, running around like a headless chicken. Absolutely clueless. Bristol get the ball off him, pass it around, and of course score. And it was an absolute disaster. Second on the list, Jordan Much. What an absolute waste of space this player was. This guy didn't even kick a ball hardly. I think he played a few times. He looked overweight. He looked slow. He wasn't even a Premiership, let alone a Championship player. He was more like a non-league player the way he played. He was completely and utterly useless. Didn't do anything. Didn't offer a goddamn thing. I can't remember one good game or one good moment he had at Crystal Palace. He was diabolical. And we sold him. I think we got rid of him at the end of his contract. I can't even remember because he barely bloody played. He was absolutely atrocious, you know. And it just was like, he wasn't going to get any better. He'd rather sit on his arse and just let the paycheck come towards him and that. You know, he was a complete and utter joke. He was shambolic. Number 3 signed in 2013, just when we got promoted, Marouane Chamakh. Now, I can remember when this guy burst onto the scene, he was a brilliant player. You know, was scoring crucial goals in games to keep us up, such as Cardiff at home and West Ham at home. Was on a pretty decent run of form and that, you know, he was scoring goals consistently. He was always committing himself to the first team, showing what he's really made of. So yeah, that was his first season. His second season did all right. I can remember he had a good game against Southampton back in 2015 in the FA Cup, where he scored them 2 goals in that. You know, he did really well. Had probably one of his best games he's played for the club and that. Brilliant finisher. There's a brilliant goal scored from the Moroccan himself and that. His third season, he was atrocious, could barely get in the team. Every time he started, didn't look a threat whatsoever, looked really unfit, didn't look after himself, was lazy, completely just fell off the grid completely, you know, literally just, he couldn't even get in the team. I forgot he was even there at one point. Then then we let him go at the end of that season, and then the following season, this was the season when Allardyce took charge when we sacked Alan Pardew and that, literally, you know, they invited him back to Crystal Palace, not to play, not to give him a 1-year contract extension. They said he could come back and train with the players just to get his fitness up, you know. And after that, he just disappeared. I don't even know where he is now. He's probably playing in China or flipping, like in the Middle East or somewhere else in Europe. God knows, man. You know, you never know where half these players go these days. You know what I mean? A real promise, a real good talent. It just all went downhill and just went completely down the drain. Coming in at number 4, Flannery. Oh my words, Flannery. Yes, we signed him from Arsenal on a free transfer. Another Pardew signing, and oh my words, what an absolute disaster of a joke this guy was. He was beyond laughable. I can remember there was one game we played Stoke and we were 4-0 up. We went on to win the game 4-1. Obviously, they got a consolation goal later on. This is back in 2016 in September. And I can remember Wilfred Bonney. You know Wilfred Bonney, the ex-Swansea and Manchester City man. He just went past him. He sprinted. This is Flannery like this. And Bonney just comes zooming past him like he's Usain Bolt, for God's sake. I'm like, flipping hell. How are you getting outpaced by Bonney? Wilfred Bonney. Flipping hell, man. It was embarrassing. It was funny, but awful. And I'm like, I'm like, is this the Flannery we signed? I thought we signed the Flannery that scored them 2 goals for Arsenal against Tottenham in the League Cup. Stunning goals as well. But he was absolutely shocking. Didn't even score a goal, didn't even get an assist. I think there was one point we had to kick him out of the team because he was that bad. He didn't even get in the team. He didn't play for like 3 months. It was just a complete and utter disaster. And it really finished his career, to be fair. He was coming towards the end anyway. And I think he retired after that. I hope so. God knows where he is right now if he's still playing. But any club that has him right now, my God, you got a player there. Not. Number 5, Alex McCarthy. He was a big flop at Crystal Palace. I remember he made a mistake. You know, a few mistakes against Man City at home, against Tottenham away. This was the 15-16 season. And also, when we played Liverpool, we were 1-0 up against 10 men Liverpool, and he kicked the ball towards Firmino. Firmino had a one-on-one chance, put it away, and oh yeah, of course, Liverpool got a penalty and won the game 2-1. And yeah, if that mistake wasn't brought up, Liverpool wouldn't have got the motivation, the momentum to go on and win the game, to push for that winner. We were just lost, and he let the team down. He made too many mistakes. I think he was eventually dropped. Just a liability. We ended up selling him the next season to Southampton on a free, I believe. He didn't last long at Crystal Palace. The way we played, you know, he was making too many mistakes, just wasn't up for it, and was a complete letdown. And he was just not, he didn't really show any commitment. He didn't really push that number one goalkeeping spot at Crystal Palace. He was just really like in his own world and really let himself down. Number six. Oh boy, this one was the biggest. And had a lot of Palace fans fuming after what he said when he left the club. Emmanuel Adebayo, or Emmanuel Lazy Bayo, as I like to call it, because that's what he pretty much was. You know what I mean? Lazy. I can remember when I was like, I think I was 12 at the time. My dad said to me, "We signed a player." I'm like, "Oh my god, who is it?" Adebayo. And I was like, "Who? Who's that?" I didn't even know who Adebayo was. I knew, and then I did some research. I can remember, you know, I mean, he had a real good time at Arsenal. Did alright at Tottenham. I think he went to City as well, I believe. The only thing he was remembered for at Man City was for celebrating in front of the Arsenal fans who were beating them 4-2. So I'm like, alright, he seems decent. Only scored one goal in about God knows how many appearances in the second half of the season in 2016. You know, he was absolutely atrocious. Useless, slow, sluggish, lazy, poor. His attitude stank. Didn't really get on well with the rest of the team. I could tell the fans didn't like him. I can remember one game he was awful. He was just miskicking the balls, just completely just not there. Wasn't pressing, wasn't pushing up the pitch, wasn't playing to his ability as a striker. My dad was like to me, "Get him off." Everyone was getting frustrated. He just didn't show any commitment levels whatsoever. He was absolutely diabolical. A real shame, because he could have. I mean, he was 35. We only gave him like a half a season like contract and that, you know. So yeah, we weren't really expecting much from him, but he could have scored a few more goals than he did. He only got one goal, for God's sake. So yeah, number 5, Emmanuel Lazy Bayo. Number 7, another Chelsea Red boy, Loic Remy. Yes, do you remember the day that Loic Remy signed for Crystal Palace on loan? He was awful. He was absolutely awful. No goals scored. Was injured for the first like half of the season. Came back in like January when we sacked Alan Pardew, I believe. Just after we sacked him, actually, early January. And I was like, come on, this is your moment to shine. He was slow. He looked unfit. He was just not up to scratch at Crystal Palace, you know. I think he got dropped for the next few games. I don't even think he played another game between now and the end of that miserable season we had back in 2016 and 2017 under Big Sam. Yes, we stayed up, but he didn't really play much part in it. It was Benteke and Wolf banging all the goals in back in the day then. Awful signing. I mean, I think he's playing in France or Spain right now. God knows where he is. He's just completely gone down the bottom. I remember seeing him at Chelsea, his finishing and some of the goals he scored. I was like, we got ourselves a player. He could bag at least 10 goals for us. Then he got that injury. I was like, maybe not, maybe about 6 to 7, who knows. But he didn't even get a goal. That says it all, really. It was just a real disappointing signing, and in a pretty miserable and just dreadful period at Crystal Palace, you know. I think that's just what really just caused his career to just fall pretty freely in that, you know. Number 8, Lee Chong-yong. Remember the Korean guy we signed back in 2015 from Bolton? Alan Pardew was another Pardew signing that went all wrong. I think when he first came, he was all right. He was coming on and off as a substitute and that. You know, he was a bit of a 50-50 player for whether he was going to be playing a lot and that. And then second season, he had a quiet period. Then he came on against Stoke and scored a brilliant goal. One of our best goals in the Premier League. Not the best, but up there with our top 20 best Premier League goals. A long-range strike to win it late on at Stoke City. We won the game 2-1. I believe it was before Christmas back in 2015. I think it was Christmas Eve and that. So it's a magnificent strike. Then he was absolutely atrocious. Didn't do anything. I can remember he made one mistake against Burnley that got the ball sacked. Believe it or not, Frank de Boer back in 2017, remember when he lasted 77 days, that was because of Lee Chong-yong doing a real dodgy back pass, and then I think Chris Wood put it away and Burnley won the game 1-0. A disaster of a day, and yeah, that pretty much summed up his career. Always had a mistake in him, couldn't defend, but didn't really do much going forward. In fact, the only thing he ever did going forward was scoring that brilliant goal at Stoke. That's all he's ever done in his career, to be honest. He was a disaster, he was a flop, and he was just another typical Pardew signing, just a random signing. Like, you know, we just signed him because we needed to sign players, really. Do you know what I mean? It was just one of them signings that went absolutely down the drain. And at number 9, Wayne Hennessy. Absolutely woeful in goal. Dived like a sack of potatoes most of the time. Never looked like saving half of the long range goals that were against him. Do you know what I mean? I mean, this guy was just useless. Too many mistakes. Just was a very wooden type of player, and that, if you know what I mean, didn't really give the back four and the team, you know, in front of him confidence. Just really sloppy. I think the day he ended up getting dropped for Vicente Gaita made my day. I was absolutely just over the moon about it. You know, he was just awful. I mean, he had some good games, but most of the time he was diabolical, letting real cheap soft goals in, letting the team down. And the funny thing is, Pardew kept on bigging him up. Pardew stuck by him the whole time, and he still was terrible. You know what I mean? I can remember he kept on letting balls go under him when he was diving, rather than around him. He couldn't even get his body in the way to block him. He was 6'6", 6'6". And half of the goals he conceded most of the time were just softies, and that it really just summed his career up. I mean, he had a good game the other day for Wales, but obviously because he's their #1 goalkeeper, and it was Wales's game to get them in the World Cup, and of course they qualified. Of course he's going to step up. He never did that at Palace. Never did that at Palace once. And number 10, last but not least, Alexander Shorloff. What an absolute waste of space this guy was at Crystal Palace. We signed him for £10 million. From some Norwegian league that I've never even heard of, and that, no disrespect to the Norwegian league, but I didn't even know there was a football league there. I think he scored like 30 goals there. Palace looked at him. Roy Hodgson was the one who signed him for 10 million. And they were like, oh, he's got 30 goals, he'll probably get at least 20, 15 goals in the Prem. Well, guess how many goals he scored at Palace? 1 goal in a year. He was only there for a year at Crystal Palace. We loaned him away. Then I believe he sort of came back. He didn't play any games, but he came back, and then we loaned him out to I think it was Leipzig or someone, a German team, and he started banging in goals. This guy had no pace, no end product, never looked like he was going to score. You could give him a free header and he probably would head it out the stadium, for God's sake. He was that bad. Just complete waste of space, waste of time. I think there was one point when I think we ended up putting Wilf up front. He wasn't even a striker at the time. He was a left winger, because we didn't have any good strikers at all. Premier League was never for him. English football was never for him. And Crystal Palace was not meant to be for him. And that, you know, really, really not a good signing at all. So there you have it, my people. The top 10 worst signings to play for Crystal Palace. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, Rotors UK. Follow me on my socials, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter and Instagram. You know the rest. And yes, keep up the support, loving the support, really appreciate it, and we're going to keep on growing and pushing, and I can't wait for next season. So yes, hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you a lot in my next video.